Of course, our food's full of poison. Of course, our clothing's full of poison. Of course, our skin products are full of poison. Of course, our water's full of poison. Of course, everything is full of poison. And of course, mainstream medicine is, largely used for dealing with any of the chronic health issues. And of course, people are getting sicker and sicker. And of course, people are developing more and more chronic health conditions and being less and less healthy and having a higher and higher incidence of depression, anxiety. This just seemed like it was the direction that we were going in. And, that's it. And all the people like me and my colleagues can do is just fight against the tide somewhat and help those few people who, for whatever reason, have kind of gone down the rabbit hole of realizing that the institutional authorities have been lying to them their whole lives. And often, there are different things that make that happen. But for most people, things changed a bit in 2020. But before that, a health diagnosis was one of the big things that helped people realize, you went to a doctor and they told you had something, and they tell you there's nothing you can do about it, or, the options that they present to you are so awful that people look into alternatives and they're like, oh my God. So the chronic health epidemic is obviously a big thing. And that's the number one thing that I am excited about. My system that I've created, which, I'm not talking about this health show, that's more for the podcast, but the 7-step rejuvenation blueprint, the code for reversing all chronic disease, that's obviously a big mission. I'm doing my part in that. So obviously that's a big thing. But let's talk about a couple of the other things, just so you know where I'm coming from on non-health issues. So I am for freedom of speech and freedom of information. I think that everyone should have the right to say things, whether true or not. I think if you're only a fan of freedom of speech, if it's things that you want to hear, then you're not really a fan of freedom of speech. The whole point is that people should have a right to say things, even if they are wrong, even if they are horrible, or even if they hurt your feelings, because sometimes the truth, and the truth is super important, is not the consensus. And unfortunately, we live in a world where that is very often the case, right? And, the whole COVID situation, I think, was a great example of this, how almost everything that the mainstream authorities, institutional people told us was true, turned out not to be true. Hey, this is Elwin Robinson, and that was a clip from the Real Health News Update show. Remember to share this clip, like and subscribe, and you can catch full episodes live every weekend on my YouTube channel, or see full episode replays by subscribing to the Rejuvenate podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts.